On November 4th, I was busy. You were busy. The whole country was very, very busy. The Bush administration, turns out they were really surprisingly busy. On November 4th, while the rest of the planet was obsessed with that ginormous historic election thingy, the Bush administration was busy opening up huge swaths of wilderness in Utah for oil and gas extraction on or near the boundaries of 3 national parks. They bypassed the National Park Service even to do it. After that, you may recall Robert Redford came on this show to encourage people to fight the midnight regulation. And this past Friday, a college student from Utah decided to do just that. And then some. With 28 days left in the Bush administration, it's time for the Rachel Maddow Show's Lame Duck Watch, because somebody's got to do it. Now, on Friday, the Bureau of Land Management held a controversial auction to sell oil and gas drilling rights to nearly 150,000 acres of wilderness in southern Utah. The sale had been strongly opposed by lots of environmental groups and concerned citizens, including one 27-year-old Tim DeChristopher, a University of Utah economics student. He decided to take matters into his own hands. Mr. DeChristopher went to the Bureau of Land Management office in Salt Lake City, where the auction was due to take place. He encountered some protesters walking back and forth outside. He says he decided there and then to do something more than just joining the protesters outside. He went inside and he registered as a bidder and entered the auction and began to enter fake bids. Lots of them. He quickly became known as bidder number 70. Now, Mr. DeChristopher actually won bids on 13 parcels of land by pledging about $1.7 million that he really does not have. When legitimate bidders figured out that Mr. DeChristopher was not legitimate, authorities escorted the University of Utah student out of the building. When it was all said and done, 116 parcels totaling just less than 150,000 acres had sold for over $7 million. DeChristopher's fake bids drove up the price of legitimate bids by about $500,000. Buyers now have 10 days to reconsider and withdraw their bids if they want to, if they think they have unfairly paid too much because of Mr. DeChristopher playing the role of the ringer. Now, that said, some bidders say they may hold on to their leases because even if they did pay so much for them that they wouldn't have had to pay, these parcels might not be offered again by the Obama administration. Yeah, you think? The Bureau of Land Management spokeswoman says her agency is consulting with bidders and attorneys on how to best resolve the auction. It's possible the entire lease sale may be redone. Criminal investigators for the BLM questioned Mr. DeChristopher. He was released, and the case was referred to federal prosecutors for possible fraud charges. For his part, DeChristopher says he will go to jail if he has to.
It's going to take some major changes for us to have a livable future. And if that means some people like me have to go to jail, then that's what I'm willing to do.
Joining us now is Trip Van Noppen, who is president of Earthjustice, which is a public interest law firm involved with a lawsuit against the government to stop the leasing of those oil and gas rights in Utah. Mr. Van Noppen, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Rachel, and thanks for keeping a good eye on the lame ducks.
Indeed. Let me ask you first about this act of civil disobedience that we learned about over the weekend. This young man from the University of Utah deciding essentially to sabotage the auction. I know that has not been the tactic that your law firm has chosen to fight this sort of thing. What do you make of his tactics and his actions?
Well, I understand the outrage that he feels. I understand the frustration that he feels with this auction going forward at the midnight hour of the Bush administration when they're trying to push this through before Inauguration Day. We think that there's a remedy for this in the courts. I do understand that civil disobedience has had a place in history at times when the law won't work. We actually think in this case the Bush administration is violating the law and that the court will remedy it. And so we're in court to stop it.
The 150,000 acres that were auctioned off, even with this monkey wrench in the works, have now been auctioned. And if the people who placed legitimate bids decide to not rescind them, is it a done deal? Are those parcels available for oil and gas drilling, or is your lawsuit seeking to undo even those parcels that were sold, in effect, on Friday?
Our lawsuit is seeking to stop the government from finalizing the auction and then allowing drilling to go ahead. So what happened on Friday was they took the bids and closed the auction, but they didn't actually finalize it or accept those offers. They agreed with the judge in our case to put off finalizing it until January the 19th, the day before Election Day, before Inauguration Day, to finalize it so that the judge can consider the arguments about whether they violated the law. They clearly did fail to do the kind of environmental review that's required. There are magnificent landscapes, as you've already mentioned. They're some of America's most valuable petroglyphs and ancient art in these Red Rock canyons, and the drilling activity and all of the development that goes with it will bring air pollution problems to Canyonlands and Arches National Park. So the judge is going to consider those arguments and decide whether to allow the leasing to go ahead and become final. It's striking that the government wouldn't allow the postponing of this hearing until January the 21st. They insisted that it had to be done by January the 19th.
So it's striking, given how aware they seem to be of important political dates on the calendar around this issue.
Absolutely.
Mr. Ben Noppen, Trip Ben Noppen,
Yep.
president of the public interest law firm Earthjustice. Thank you, and good luck to you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
If this were a dictatorship, it'd be a heck of a lot easier. Just so long as I'm the dictator.